Coming up on Tech News today, new Kindle Fire photos are leaking. Are they real? HBO is going rogue in Scandinavia, and are Apple and Google calling a truce? All that and more next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
Open. This is Tech News Today for Friday, August 31st, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by the new Squarespace, which introduces a new content management system, making it faster and easier to create a high-quality website or blog. Plus, more than 50 new features, including mobile responsive designs with automatic device scaling. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT8. And by Carbonite Online Backup. Automatic, continual, and unlimited backup for your computer files for only $59 per year. Try it free at Carbonite.com and use the offer code TNT to get 2 bonus months with purchase. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Darren Kitchen.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we participate in TGIF. No, it's the show where we kick around stories. Tech stories.
Yeah, we're kicking them around. We're trying to make sure they make sense.
It's a game of kickball.
Yeah, effectively,
but with tech.
Yeah. Or is it T-ball? I can't remember.
Of course, here with us, as always on Friday, is Darren Kitchen. He's remote, but he's still here. And without further ado, let's start with the top 10 stories of the day in the News Fuse. Want to know exactly what the new Kindle Fire will look like? Well, The Verge has a photo and reports a pair of Fires is likely, a 7 and a 10-inch version, although both not guaranteed for next week's announcement. If you'd also like to see a refreshed Kindle Touch, okay, got one of those too. The button below the display is gone. The bezel is now a dark gray. Overall shape, the USB port, power switch, those all look the same. And the retail name for this unit is not clear yet. Amazon could call it the Kindle Touch again. But some folks are wondering if Paperweight might be a contender too, which is referring to a new display with a higher contrast, resolution, integrated lighting, and 8 weeks of battery life.
The Wall Street Journal reports that the next iPhone may face supply problems due to manufacturing difficulties at Sharp, a display provider for Apple. The Journal says it's not clear if or when Sharp can start production. Apple will have to rely more on its partners like LG and Japan Display for now.
Reuters reports that Apple CEO Tim Cook and Google CEO Larry Page have been talking on the phone discussing intellectual property. Reuters sources also say that this isn't some sort of isolated calls, as others are planned for the coming weeks. So could we be seeing some sort of a truce?
Oracle has issued an emergency fix today for vulnerabilities in its Java software about 4 months after it was warned about these bugs. The delay in providing a fix allowed more than 100,000 computers to get hacked. The latest version of Java, Java 7, was the one that's affected in these attacks. And while only Windows machines were being attacked, other OSs like Solaris, Linux, even OS X are also vulnerable if users have Java 7 installed.
People have been chomping at the bit to see what Apple would do after it purchased Chomp. See what they did there? It's awful. A search engine Apple bought a while ago. Well, wonder no more. Jailbreaknation.com has a video and screenshots of a revised app store with a new layout that uses a card layout that looks a lot like Chomp's old model.
HBO Go without having a cable subscription? Oh yeah, it's happening. Get this. HBO announced HBO Nordic AB, which will give portions of Europe access to HBO content for less than €10 a month. So that means the US is getting it next, right? No, not really. An HBO spokesman said that that this isn't a strategic change for the company, and they consider the market unique. That's a good thing that IP geolocation is completely foolproof.
Reuters is reporting anonymous sources that say Apple and 4 major publishers, Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, Hachette, and Macmillan, have offered to allow retailers like Amazon to sell ebooks at a discount for 2 years. This is in a bid to end an EU antitrust investigation and potential fines. The EU investigation into Apple's ebook pricing deals with the publishers and whether or not they hamper competition, and has been open since December.
Nokia wasn't kidding when it said it wanted to be known as the Wear Company. Reuters reports Amazon has signed a deal with Nokia, which will bring Nokia's maps to the next Kindle Fire. Maybe the next Kindle Fire will have a GPS chip, but we'll find out next week.
This week, Grooveshark was back in the Play Store. Oh yeah, that didn't last long though. The app has already been kicked out again. This is actually the second time that Grooveshark has been booted. The first was over a year ago when it was dumped because it violated Google's policies. Grooveshark told CNET that the company is still working to get the app back in the Play Store. Otherwise, you can still sideload it from Grooveshark's mobile site.
Nokia's new flagship Windows Phone 8 has leaked, and it's the Lumia 920. Posted to Twitter by EV Leaks, the new Lumia 920 appears to include a PureView camera, a 4.5-inch display, and looks like it might be available in a number of colors. Leaked images of the Lumia 820 also surfaced today, previously known as the Arrow. Both devices will likely be unveiled at a special event with Microsoft in New York next week. All right, before we get into some of the discussion of some of our top stories, let's take a moment to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of Tech News Today. It's the new Squarespace.com. You've probably heard us talk about it on TWiT, but if you haven't tried it out yet, I think you'll be impressed at how much faster and easier it is than ever to create the high-quality website or blog of your dreams. Squarespace has a lot of new features, but one of the main ones is a new content management system. So technically, it has a completely different code base. Uses the latest web technologies, HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript foundations for speed and flexibility for development. Now, if you don't know anything about any of that stuff, that's actually why Squarespace could be a really good solution for you, because if you want to try out one of their built-in templates, they've got a bunch just to get you started. They've got great drag and drop functionality that you can use for customization. So if you want something to be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, or change the color, that's all really, really easy. You can write the code yourself, but you absolutely don't have to know any of that stuff. What's also great is a new page builder tool. They call it the Layout Engine. And this is about customizing pages by adding blocks of content. So you want to display photos or videos or text, a lot of social media content. You've got, a very thriving Instagram account. You can have that all be part of your website, whether it's a blog or really anything. The new Squarespace is a great solution for anybody who's looking to put together that new website. And we've got an offer. For a free trial, go to squarespace.com. Click the Try It Free button. It's a big green button, and that's your free account. You don't need a credit card. Actually, look, it's a yellow button now. You don't need a credit card. You just try it out, start building your website, see what you can achieve. If you decide to purchase, use the offer code TNT8 and you'll get 10% off your first purchase on new Squarespace accounts. Those include monthly and annual plans. It's a really good deal. Squarespace.com, use that offer code TNT8. And we thank them for sponsoring this episode of TNT. All right, let's get into some discussion stories. What do you think about all these Kindles, Iyaz?
Well, yesterday after the show wrapped up, there was this article from The Verge showing off the new Amazon Kindle Fire. Now, if we could show that image, it looks pretty ugly. All of us were talking about it after the show, saying
it was like 5 minutes after the show.
Yeah, right after it, and we're just like, this looks pretty
janky.
That's the good word for it. I was thinking something much more.
What do you expect it to look like? I mean, it's a tablet. What does it need to do? It's just a little box with a screen.
Well, one of the additions to the Kindle Fire 2, whether that is or not, it actually has a camera on the top. But an update to that article that showed up later was a source tells The Verge the image isn't of the new Kindle Fire because that source has held the new Kindle Fire. He goes, the bezel on the new Kindle Fire is wider. It has sloping sides like the old Motorola Zoom, so it fits nicely in the hand. So this image that we saw yesterday could just simply be a prototype or a mock-up, and I'm really hoping it was. I hope that's definitely not it, because I really got to say, I mean, Darren, you think that it should just look like a tablet, but what else? I mean, it should look unique, shouldn't it?
No, I mean, what you're competing against is like your implementation of the software. I mean, at the end of the day, all these guys are running the same ARM chips, and what's nice is that they all kind of like look and feel the same. It's really the software that differentiates them. I can't think of like what you would do to improve upon, just the slab with a screen on it, other than reduce the bezel. That's just personally how I feel about it. If you look at your cell phone, it goes straight to the edge of the screen, and these bezels on like the iPad and the Kindle Fire and even the Nexus 7 are huge. But that's what I think.
Even the Barnes & Noble Nook has that hook thing on the side. At least it's unique enough that you go, oh, I know that device. How many people have seen a Kindle Fire and go, is that the Playbook, or is that the other way around? Assuming you know what a Playbook is. But I mean, these devices looked so similar. And one of the things about the rumor about the Kindle Fire is that it's a custom design this time. It's not going to be a reference design like the first one. I still really am holding out hope that it looks unique enough that it's not this like, oh, another slab.
I don't know. I like a wide bezel. I mean, I don't want it to take up too much of the screen real estate that should go to the image itself, to the display. But I know that when the Nexus 7 came for you, that was the first thing, and you were like, I don't know how to hold it. I know how to hold it when it's in landscape mode, but otherwise, I don't know where to put my thumbs.
Well, that's what the problem I had with the original Kindles in general. But the Nexus 7, I haven't found that difficult because I can palm it.
Right.
So it's not that big a deal. But I mean, it's not the best size for that kind of device. I'm actually more excited about the other Kindle with the e-ink display with the Paperweight technology, which theoretically should have a much higher contrast ratio. Sarah, you talked about this in News Fuse. Like, one of the reasons I've been holding out is that if you look at a Kindle right now, it's kind of that black on gray. It's getting more and more white, but it's not truly like that book experience. But I'm thinking this could probably push me over the edge to finally go get a new Kindle, because it looks like it's going to be competing with the Nook Simple Touch, because it has a backlight, so you can finally read in a dark situation. And with that increased contrast ratio, it's going to feel more like a real book. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Like a real backlit book?
Well, I'm going to keep the backlight off most of the time.
Yeah, okay.
I don't really like that stuff.
It would be nice to have something that has the brightness of an LCD without actually having to be that LCD reading experience. That does make my eyes tired after a while.
Yeah, but the thing that drove me crazy about the Kindle in general was the lack of any kind of light. So you had this beautiful piece of technology with e-ink technology inside, and then you had this little like telescoping light over it. Like this is the best technology we could come up with. It's like, put it inside the machine already. So
it reminds me of the Game Boy Advance. You know, the original Game Boy Advance.
It reminds me of camping.
It reminds me of those magnifying things you used to put on the old Game Boy. It's like when you want a larger screen, a giant magnifying glass.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
I used to have that. It's like larger. It's like, no, it's not.
I think I had that for a Game Gear.
This Kindle better be successful, because if it's not, people are going to start calling it the Paperweight.
Oh, wow.
Love
Just
that.
saying, just saying.
Nice.
The irony.
I know.
Are you waiting for the Kindle Paper?
No.
Oh, boy. Okay, let's move on to some more on the Apple and Samsung wars that are global. We've talked so much about the U.S. Patent lawsuit between Apple and Samsung. Just figured we'd keep you up to date on what's happening in Japan. Tokyo judge has ruled that the Galaxy S, the Galaxy Tab, and the Galaxy S2 do not infringe on an Apple invention for synchronizing music and video data with servers. Tokyo District Judge Tamatsu Shoji today ordered Apple to pay costs of the lawsuit after his verdict, which was the latest decision, obviously, in a big dispute between the two companies over a variety of patents and a variety of mobile devices. Samsung shares rose as much as, close to 2% after the ruling. What's interesting is just kind of the Japanese market in general. So much attention has been cast on the U.S. market, at least what we've been talking about on this show as of late. Samsung doesn't actually provide sales figures for Japan. Bloomberg has some data crunches that say probably generates about 12% of its revenue from Asia, and that is excluding South Korea and China. So if you exclude those two, obviously very big markets, 12% is pretty big. Apple, by comparison, gets about 5.7% of its sales in Japan alone. Those two, the data comes from looking at sales in the same period between the two companies. This doesn't really say much. I mean, even the jury findings in the U.S. doesn't really say much right now. As it stands, Samsung is ordered to pay over $1 billion, but even if they ever have to pay that, I mean, that's probably not going to happen for a couple of years. Same kind of thing in this situation. But it does show that, I mean, depending where these trials are taking place, there are very different outcomes. And historically, Japan is pretty conservative when it comes to IP cases.
Yeah, but in this particular case in Japan, it's about the patents are involving synchronizing music and video data with servers, and that's not what was going on in the United States.
Right.
So there are different rights in different countries, and that's one of the reasons why we're seeing so many different lawsuits in so many different countries and continents all over the place, because you have to register like internationally. You got to go around and take care of this everywhere. So it doesn't seem like Samsung's going to get a whole lot of leverage out of this thing. Apple lost a case. It's not like Samsung won something really. So it just seems like maybe They're both.
You
gonna
have a
back off.
loser and that other company.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Well, I mean, that's effectively what happened here because they were being sued and they didn't have a countersuit as far as I know. So Apple has to pay the cost of the lawsuit.
Exactly.
That's the entirety of it. So unless that's $1 billion.
That's it.
I don't think Samsung's going to
Yeah, Apple just didn't get what it wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're not awarding anybody 1.05 billion. I think that Apple and Samsung should just go around the world, country to country, awarding each other 1.05 billion, jurisdiction to jurisdiction,
That would make things easier. We actually have more news about Apple and patents and perhaps a silver lining. I don't know. We'll get to that in a few minutes, but we should first talk about the idea of getting HBO a la carte. Now, this news came out yesterday evening, and before I did a cartwheel, I thought, well, maybe I should read this Variety article and get some details, and it's actually not that interesting for anybody outside of the Nordic region. HBO had announced in a press conference that took place in Stockholm that HBO Nordic AB will launch in mid-October. This is the pay TV network that includes Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. Is a joint venture with Parseval International. Now, what's interesting about this is not only that HBO is planning to offer folks who don't already have a cable package access to HBO, but it was announced less than 24 hours after Netflix announced expansion into the exact same region. Could be coincidental, but probably not. So there's two things that HBO is going to allow. A standalone launch of HBONordic.com where you can get HBO content without having any television subscription at all. And then HBO Nordic AB will be available then for less than 10 euros a month, so pretty attractive pricing, as an add-on to basic tape TV subscriptions in that region. It's worth mentioning that HBO actually already has a standalone digital product in Poland, but they don't draw huge numbers there. This Scandinavian region has, I think, about 25 million potential customers. Kind of interesting, Reed Hastings has already taken to Facebook and posted yesterday, excited to see HBO join us in offering standalone streaming services in Scandinavia. What about the USA? We thought the first matchup would be in Albania. Now, if you're wondering, what does that mean? That's actually in response to a reference that Time Warner CEO Jeff Bewkes said about Netflix hype 2 years ago. He said Netflix hype was like hyping the Albanian army as taking over the world. So a little bit of friendly mudslinging, it sounds like.
The Variety article also points out that HBO doesn't have to protect its market like it does. It's a business model as much in the Scandinavian countries as opposed to the U.S. because the U.S. is way more money. It seems like HBO is just simply going, what is going to make us the most amount of money? And if these countries can pay €10 a month to get HBO, and that gives HBO more money than it would normally. I mean, that's just business decisions. The question is, when is that going to make smart business sense in the United States? I
don't think HBO thinks it does at all at this point. I don't think that they can figure out a scenario where it does make sense.
I mean, they've been very outspoken in the United States saying, we are not doing this. We are not going to have a standalone service. You have to have a pay subscription with a cable provider or a satellite company, and then maybe we'll let you run it on one of the boxes, assuming we have a deal with either Roku or the Xbox or whatever other box there is right now.
And then maybe if they ever do change their mind, I can pretty much guarantee you it's not going to be the equivalent of 10 euros a month, which is $12.59 here in the U.S. right now. But I always love to see these things come about because, it's one of those things where it's like the business logic doesn't meet the network logic, which is there's no such thing as true geolocation because you can, just route your stuff through VPN tunnels, SSH tunnels, and things of that nature. So I don't know, Sarah, would you actually pay $12.50 to watch this stuff in Nordician? Nordician? I think that's what it's called. Scandinavia-ish, I think.
Well, I probably don't have to learn another language because I assume everything will be subtitled rather than dubbed. If you're asking if I'd pay $12.50 a month to get HBO content a la carte, the answer is yes. Absolutely. That's a deal. I'm begging HBO to let me take their money that way.
There was a campaign, was what, TakeMyMoney, HBO.com.
That's right.
People saying, look, we will put up money for this. And I know that HBO content is really good stuff. And the thing is, if you can get it outside of cable, instead of people going, hey, can you loan me your login credentials for your Comcast so I can go ahead and look at mine? Like that, like they're losing money that way. So it's kind of strange that they're not taking advantage of I guess taking advantage of us. We want to give you money. Just give us your money. This seems like a really strange idea.
Well, they know that this stuff is going on. And, you know, I mean, HBO is well aware that people can use someone else's credentials. I think there's probably some sort of a limit. I've had people say, I tried, it didn't work. You know, so I'm not exactly sure why it works sometimes and not others. But they still don't think it makes monetary sense.
It's like the supposition that there's only actually one Netflix account and that we all share the password, right?
Right. Exactly. So, yeah, we'll have to keep dreaming about the idea of HBO Go, HBO standalone in the U.S., but congratulations to all countries in Northern Europe who are involved. And let us know if you're going to go ahead and pay into it.
If those countries also get like Google Fiber, I think I'm just going to move. That's it. It's like they got HBO standalone and they have fast internet. I'm just going to go.
Hey, Norway has those never-ending summer nights, days rather.
I think I'll be
Sounds
moving
great,
this weekend.
huh?
Okay. Sounds great.
It's settled. Let's thank Carbonite for sponsoring this episode of Tech News Today. Before we get into some other news stories, Carbonite Online Backup is very important because if your computer files are not backed up right now, what happens when there's a fire or something gets stolen out of your home or you get an SD virus or a computer crash that you don't actually bounce back from? That is a very scary situation, and you want to be protected. To be protected, to really be protected, you need online backup from Carbonite. This will get your files automatically and continually backed up, so you don't have to think about it all the time. They're stored safely off-site, so it doesn't matter. You know, you don't have to have a fire safe in your house. If after you have a computer disaster, it's easy to restore your files from Carbonite. Plus, you can access your backed up files privately on any computer, on your smartphone, on your iPad with a free app. So it's easy to get those files. You don't have to feel like they're locked away and hard to get to. Carbonite has an offer. Unlimited backup for your PC or Mac is only $59 per year, but you can try it free. Go to carbonite.com and enter the offer code TNT. Carbonite.com, TNT. You get 2 bonus months for free if you decide to buy with the offer code, which is TNT. Be sure to sign up for the free trial from the homepage and get those 2 months free. Get a sense of what peace of mind, how well you sleep at night when you know that your files are backed up. We all have really important stuff. We don't want it to go away. That's where Carbonite can help. By the way, no credit card required for that free trial, so you can check it out. Give it a go. Carbonite.com, offer code TNT, and we thank them for sponsoring this episode. All right, let's move into Google TV. How's the scene?
It's been 2 years since Google TV, or almost 2 years since Google TV was out for the masses. And Dave Zatz has a piece looking at the Logitech review 2 years after its launch. And the headline reads, Google TV 2 years later, still not very good. And apparently Zatz's real-life experience with Google TV, he didn't get a whole lot of use out of it other than Netflix. There's still a limited app selection with a few dozen apps. It's been 2 years, so it's been a pretty long time. There's no Hulu app, no HBO Go app, no Cinemax Go, no Showtime apps. Even though you can go around some of this by using the browser, Hulu's still blocked. Hardware-wise, it's sluggish apparently, and still there's some issues with the HDMI connection and handshake issues. And also, there's this study out from GfK saying that the U.S. is lagging behind when it comes to connected televisions. Turns out China uses them the most, with 44% using smart televisions with apps. Brazil and India are using connected televisions more than the U.S., the U.K., and Germany. Although smart TVs are gaining momentum here and Europe in the first half of 2012. I mean, we have a television box, the Google TV, trying to make your TV smarter. You got smart TVs not really taking off in the U.S. Is trying to smarten up television just a dumb idea?
Well, these GfK numbers, is it people who have access to apps on their TVs or people who are using apps on their TVs?
They're using these apps.
Okay, so I think that's kind of that's the main thing, right? Is before I ever had a Roku box, I had a Sony TV that had some, Netflix integrated, Amazon integrated, I think probably Pandora. I mean, there were a few options I had, but it was clunky. The interface was, I don't know, it wasn't a joy to use, and I kind of was in there if I had to. And I feel like without these set-top boxes, that's probably what other people have an issue with. It's like yeah, the features are in there, but they're kind of hidden, and it's not a seamless process. But Google TV, I mean, if we're comparing Google TV to some of the other offerings, I mean, how does it not have Hulu Plus?
Darren, you seem to have a strong opinion about this.
Well, it's just all I want to do is consume the content, and I want to do it with the thing that I know and love. I just want to use a web browser because that's where the content is, whether it's on Amazon Prime or on demand, whether it's Netflix or Hulu or whatnot. And that was one of the allures, to me at least, to the Google TV. It's like, well, really, all I need is a browser, and hey, if you've got some apps, that's cool too. And it was pretty cool that the Google TV actually had Flash. But you're right, the review was hella slow. And it's very fragmented, the whole idea of like Google offering you a box that you can just plug into your TV and get your entertainment on. Because at a certain point, trying to do things like renting movies from the YouTube application not working so much on the Google TV, or the idea like, oh, well, you've got that whole Play Store with all these movies. How do I get at that on Google TV? Yeah, you kind of can't. So then I was like, well, hey, look, there's a Chrome box. Google offers me a box that's very similar to the Google TV. It just plugs in HDMI, and you do the same thing with the Bluetooth keyboard. Try that out, awesome. Except again, no YouTube movie rentals. You try to go to it, and it actually says like, "Yo, dog, you might want to upgrade to Chrome." And you're like, "I'm as Chromey as I can get here."
Yo, dog, I heard you like Chrome, so I didn't put any YouTube in your Chrome.
Yeah, exactly. And then to top it all off, there's the Nexus Q. So it's just like, okay, Google, I get that you want to bring that rich media experience to the television. Which one is it?
And GFK also found out that what people really want next, 67% are interested in touch and gesture TV control, and 43% want to use control their TV using something other than the traditional remote. I think this is one of the reasons why smart TVs really didn't take off, because you got to hit menu, you got to go in, you got to dig in and try to find it. If you want to write something on Twitter, you better hope your remote's got a QWERTY keyboard on the back. Like, there's so many things that just seem ridiculous, because you would rather just use your smartphone and look at Twitter that way, write on that, and send it off instead of going, okay, menu, slider, okay, over here. Right. Okay, it's loading. Okay, good, because they used a really, really crappy processor. Good, good. Oh, it's not going. It's not connected. My TV doesn't have Wi-Fi. Like, these kinds of things, I think, cause a lot of problems. And if you could change the way you interact, because I'm using voice dictation a lot on my Nexus 7 and my iPad, that's what I want to do sometimes. Be like, okay, Netflix search this. Like, that's what I want to see. So I know LG's got some of these new remotes, but I think that's probably going to help smart TVs in the long run when you can interact with it differently than that same old remote control.
Do you think that maybe that's the reason that Google TV seems to be, I mean, a semi-abandoned project? We're all kind of going, well, what's going on with Google TV? What's happening? Maybe Google is smart enough to know that they should figure out gesture solutions and are actively working on that, and we're just in a lull.
Well, new Google TVs just came out, and from what I understand, will continue to. So, I mean, I think that platform actually has some good opportunities. If they would put something other than a Dorito under the hood, you put an i7 in that thing, it starts getting interesting. I still think that Android is an interesting platform for that because it's lightweight and it can do those cool things. Although when you start taking out Flash, then it becomes more and more less useful, or less and less useful, I guess you would say. Like when you go to Hulu.com on a Google TV, and it's like, oh, well, you can't play this because you're a Google TV, and yet you do the same thing on a Chrome box, and it's like, no problem, you're a desktop.
I think that's one of the issues. One of the issues with Google is that they haven't integrated Google Television experience with their handset experience or the tablet experience, because they don't really work together right now. And that's the thing. Like, if you can do something on your tablet, you should be able to do it with a Google Television box, but they're not exactly the same. So this is one of the things that I think Google's been spending more time polishing Android for handsets and tablets, and then maybe they'll bother to bring it back to the television. But it just seems clunky right now. They're just not integrated as well as they should be.
And it's very confusing, like you were saying, Darren, with their combination of different efforts. I mean, one thing I hope that they learned from the Nexus Q experiment, or whatever you want to call it, because we don't know what's going to happen to it, if it's going to come back or not, is that it is actually pretty nice to be able to control your media device on a TV from the device that you have in your hand. Browsing YouTube on your device and then sending it to the TV was really cool on the Q. I hope that they do things like that in the Google TV that make it more useful.
That with the Google TV.
Can you like
nobody knows how?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Whereas one person that knows how.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who comes over and commandeers my Google TV with their Android phone, and I have no idea how she does it. But yeah, And you know what's really sad is it's 2012 and still the best solution is a boring Windows box plugged into your PC, because no matter what website you go to, they don't throw up like a whole like, oh, well, you can't watch this on that device because heaven forbid our business model.
Computers are the answer. There we go. None of these dumbed down things.
All right, somebody in chat earlier in the show said, if I hear one more Apple rumor, I'm just going to scream. This isn't really a rumor, although it could change before it gets out of beta. iOS 6 beta, which of course is available if you are in the developer program, is showing an updated app store. It has a few, not huge changes, but definitely layout changes, which really look like they are integrating the visuals of the company Chomp, which of course was acquired by Apple, and possibly even using part of their algorithm. So some of the changes are Genius recommendations are now front and center at the bottom in the bottom navigation. They offer apps that you might want to download depending on who you're connected to. Purchase section has been upgraded as well. You can now search for podcasts within the store. There's a revamped desktop version of iTunes probably coming. I mean, this is all iOS that we're looking at, but you've got to assume that if iOS is getting a big overhaul, they've got to do something with the desktop version so that they at least match each other, or that would be terrible. I'm just assuming that they're not going to do something that terrible. But yeah, so when you see on this video here, which was taken by Jailbreak Nation, you can see that these look like sort of like little cards, like playing cards. So when you search for something, it is a big front and center. You get a nice big version of the album art, so it's sort of less text off the bat. You get user ratings, a big nice button to download, whether it's free or it'll show how much it costs. Now, Jailbreak Nation noted, for those not watching the video, the guy is holding up a phone in front of an iPad and saying, well, look, 2 searches are coming up with different results. And I only have iOS 6 beta on the iPad, not the iPhone. So maybe Apple has changed its algorithm a little bit in search results and possibly using something of Chomp's. I think that might be because you're searching for stuff on an iPhone and then you were on the iPad tab in your search results, because some apps aren't for both. But it remains to be seen. The search results might have gotten a little bit beefed up. What's interesting is that if you look at the way that search results are displayed, they definitely look nicer. That's absolutely true. But you get fewer results per page. And one of the biggest problems with app developers is, if you're not in some top free app list or somehow get featured or for whatever reason are lucky enough to get the word out and kind of go viral as an app, the chances are slim that you're going to have many downloads at all. And the further down you're pushed on any results, the worse off you are potentially.
So that's why I would think that that's why the Genius features like front and center, because if you've downloaded a bunch of apps, if their algorithm is smart enough to actually suggest applications that you should download, you're not necessarily searching or going through the featured list. You're going, oh wait, I do use Evernote and Simple Note. Maybe I should try this other thing. This kind of that kind of Genius feature would make it a little easier to find things,
right?
Or I guess by luck, because the thing is, the App Store is so large at this point, it's almost impossible to find anything unless the way I do it is I search for it on the web, then I view it in iTunes, then I download it, and then it goes to the iPad, because otherwise I can't get it. I can't find it in the iTunes Store or the App Store on the iPad originally. So if anything can improve that experience on the iPad or the iPhone, that has to be a good thing.
Darren, any thoughts on the iTunes App Store getting a revamp?
I just think it looks good with its tiles or cards or rounded corner div tags. What are we calling them now?
WebOS leftovers.
I see.
All right, iOS 6 is expected to be rolling out this month, if we're all lucky. But with Apple, you never know. And again, this is in the developer beta. Things can change before the official consumer release, but looks like we're going to get an update to the App Store. Now let's end with some possible good news for anybody who's sick of patent wars.
That's right. We have the Reuters report that Darren mentioned that Larry Page and Tim Cook are meeting over the phone. That's right. They actually use like telephones to discuss intellectual property matters. And this isn't an isolated incident. They're talking again. All Things D, actually, their sources say the same thing. They're backing up Reuters, saying that more conversations will happen. One possible scenario under consideration would be a truce involving disputes over basic features and functions in Android. That's what one source said. And that first discussion apparently were very high-level discussions, not about specifics. I guess they're just opening up a dialogue. Considering Microsoft and Apple buried the hatchet years ago, is it possible that we're going to see Google and Apple just figure out a solution right now so we can move forward in the smartphones?
Well, it seems that especially with all of the lawsuits that Apple is wrapped up in, and they're not the only company, but I mean, they've really got their hands in quite a few lawsuits right now. Even though they can afford it, they've got lawyers that are good, they can pay them. You know, they win cases, not all the time, but this is something that it's not exactly that they're vulnerable when it comes to defending their patents. It's got to be a drain on your creative resources. I mean, the more time that you spend with all of the stuff, the less time you're really devoting to taking it to the next level. And we're already talking about how Apple is really in a vulnerable position. More than ever, we've got companies who've got products that are as good and in many people's eyes better than Apple. Apple's not like way above everybody here just going, yeah, you know, we'll fight you in court, no problem. I think it's a good time for them to say what's really important to us. If we can figure out something with Google, so yeah, I mean, we're still going to be rivals. It's not like we're going to join forces, but try not to, I don't know, just conserve the resources a little bit more.
Darren, do you think that we're going to see like Google apps show up again on iOS by default? I mean, YouTube's getting the boot in iOS 6, and obviously Apple's moved away from using Google Maps, all these things. If they worked out intellectual property stuff, do you think they would start integrating products back?
Well, I think that Apple could potentially need Google, where Google, I don't see any need that they have for Apple other than, you know, settling these disputes and, you know, getting things to like calm down so that innovation can continue. Most likely what's happening, though, is just, you know, the same as what probably happened over a decade ago. You know, CEOs, presidents, whatever, they just get on the phone, they chat. I'm sure Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan were talking about what they were watching on Netflix. So let's not speculate too much.
That's right. You're probably right. It's probably just all about Netflix discussions and HBO Go. Intellectual property matters. They're like, what if we just bought HBO? Let's just do that or buy a cable company.
Together we can do anything.
They probably could, actually. They got enough money to do it.
Probably. You know, you guys should think about that. Join forces. Buy HBO.
Buy Dish.
Buy NFL while you're at it.
Buy the NFL. That's the second time you've mentioned this idea.
That's because
that Apple buys the
that's
NFL.
That's the pie in the sky thing that always comes to mind, where I'm like, what's too expensive for anyone? NFL.
Buy the Apple TV, get the NFL for free. I like this idea.
Exactly. Just comes bundled in. You'll love it. Let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
What?
We didn't know with the randomizer.
The 3D Pac-Man is awesome. Have you guys seen this? The creator of Katamari Damacy, can anybody want to help me with this? I can't pronounce the Katamari.
You're on your own, buddy.
Yeah.
It sounds good.
Takashari. Anyway, this is an exhibit that you're going to see at New York's Museum of Art and Design, and basically it's like a holodeck of epic proportion with Pac-Man, or Miss Pac-Man, that is. So you get the bow. And the idea is you stand in this room and you can play with a wireless controller Pac-Man in all degrees. So rather than just one big immersive experience in front of you, you're like tilting your head and looking up, and I'm sure it gets really disorienting. I love the idea. It's like a holodeck of 8-bit goodness.
It looks like it hurts, actually.
Yeah, it looks like a neck strain situation.
Yeah.
When I saw the headline, I'm thinking, okay, 3D, you're going to wear glasses or whatever. But if you're not watching the video, there's a large projection all over the room. So on the ceiling, on the walls, you have a big Pac-Man map. And this I guess this is cool. It just sounds great. You just somehow managed to take a projector and move the image up. Ooh, I could tilt my head up.
Yeah.
I'm very meh
I think the technology just to make this happen is pretty cool. And I want to see it applied to even more things.
I want to paint my house like this. It's like,
yeah,
turn on a projector.
that's actually the future of 3D gaming. It's not like wearing glasses or anything. It's like
tilt up.
It's having the gaming room, and the whole room is just plastered in your game, and you've got to spin in circles, and that's a workout.
We're gonna have to have.
I like how I can totally imagine that, because Microsoft, leave it to Microsoft to develop something like this, because they're the ones that say like, hey, so you're gonna need like a 10-foot throw between your television and your couch to play Kinect. They're going to be the ones that are like, so you're going to need an 8-foot by 8-foot room.
If you got ceilings below 10 feet, you can't play this game. Sorry.
Sorry. Can't be part of the fun. Let's look at the calendar.
Sure. Monday is Labor Day in the United States, which means we're all taking the day off. So no TNT for you guys. Monday,
well, not yay about that.
But we'll be back on Tuesday to report all kinds of news, assuming news happens over the weekend. Google Nexus 7 is going to be available in France, other European countries to follow on the 3rd of September. And on Tuesday, September 4th, the next Battlefield 3 download deploys. That's the calendar.
Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Got a voicemail about tablets.
Hey guys, this is Keith, also known as the Griff in the chat room. Love the show. Listened to yesterday's show in the car, and I was commenting on the Microsoft story where you can't believe they're making a tablet. And I think it kind of makes sense. No one's questioning that Google's making hardware, and certainly no one questions that Apple's making hardware. They might not be making phones because Nokia is doing such a good job, but I think for the first real Windows 8 tablet, it totally makes sense for Microsoft to make it. Thanks.
See, the thing is, Google, when they make tablets or they make devices, they usually partner up with somebody like Samsung or Asus. Like the Nexus 7 is made by Asus. But Microsoft going directly in competition with the others, it seems still a little off. I mean, Apple doesn't license its software out either. So, like, I don't know if this is exactly the same kind of scenario, but I mean, Microsoft definitely needs to control the experience. And if they think the Surface is the way to do it, I guess they have to.
Well, they definitely controlled the experience with the Xbox, and they went head-to-head with, you know, your Nintendos and Sonys of the world. But I guess you're right in that there were no, like, Microsoft partners making Xbox clones, kind of like ColecoVision versus Atari. Although that would be an interesting world. Maybe we'd see some innovation in the gaming space.
Well, I think that does it for the Friday before Labor Day. 3-day weekend, everybody. If you're not in the U.S., we're sorry that we're not going to have a show on Monday, but we will be back on Tuesday. And you know who else is going to be back? Tom Merritt. Tom Merritt is at Dragon Con. If you're wondering why I'm sitting in his seat, but he'll be back next week, as will the rest of us.
There?
What?
I've been wondering for 2 days. What are you doing there?
Yeah, Tom's not here.
Oh, man.
I know, it's weird. We didn't even, it's like, who's Tom?
Didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, he'll be back, and then I'll be sitting where Darren's sitting now. Thanks to everybody who submitted stories to our subreddit. See what I did there? technewstoday.reddit.com is where you can go to not only submit stories that you'd like us to cover on the show, and thanks to everybody who does that every day because it's really helpful, but you can also vote stories up and down. So submit and get in there and help us, help you talk about the stuff you want to hear about. Darren Kitchen, what is going on at Hack 5 these days besides a really cool brick wall?
Yeah, no joke. We are continuing our coverage of TourCamp 2012, and we have some epic stuff about building your own GSM networks with ShadyTel, as well as balloon mapping, you know, aerial photography with balloons. And why do hackers' pants weigh 30 pounds? Tune into Hack 5 to find out.
Now you have to. I want to know.
I was more intrigued by the GSM network, but the pants thing. Interesting.
Yeah.
We know you're really busy, Darren, so thanks for being able to Skype in with us, even though
Absolutely.
you couldn't be
See you
here.
in studio next week.
All right, sounds good. You can get a hold of us at TNT@twit.tv. Do you have deep, dark secrets? Want to hear about them? Write us or call us, 260-TNT-SHOW. We'll be back on Tuesday with Randall Bennett. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Oops. Well, I guess I would do a dark screen
good.
on that last part.
Jason,
But that's something I haven't done before.
Jason,
So
turn the lights off.
Jason couldn't deal with jazz hands. He's like, nope.
jazz hands overload.